LCBN television broadcasts 24/7 on UK Freeview Channel 271, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, Apple TV, Google TV, See Love World, LCBNTV.com, LifeComTV.com.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Lydia. And I don't know if you've heard or seen the post. We have a podcast that goes with the program. So in case you've missed anything else or you're not at home and able to sit in front of your TV screen or your laptop or your iPad or your phone or you're driving. So we've got the podcast available so you can download and you can listen while you drive, while you work, even if you're doing, household chores. So it's called Conversations with Lydia. It's on Spotify. It's on all the various sort of iPod, podcast stations. But tonight, we've got a couple who are going to talk about their marriage. It's something that's quite close to my heart, or myself, or my being. We're talking about when people marry somebody who's a different skin color, somebody who is culturally different from them. How do they merge these cultures with their love, their marriage, their faith? Both of them are pastors. Did faith help them in making this decision, or how does it all come together? So please help me welcome Pastors Akpo and Andrea. Onokodo. Did I say the names right?
Onduku.
Onduku.
Akpo and Andrea Onduku.
Onduku. Good evening.
Yes.
Thank you again for agreeing to come on Conversations with Lydia.
Good evening. It's so good to be with you.
Thank you. And we had a bit of a conversation before we came on, talking about my history and why the topic today. So who wants to go first? Who wants to talk a little bit about themselves before we start to talk about you as a couple?
Okay. My name is Akpo Onduku. Akpo means the world. The full name is quite jaw-cracking. Akpo Bebebo means the world matters, or global issues, global affairs, international affairs. That's my full name. And I happen to have a background in international relations and then peace studies and international law, so I'm living up to my name. Yes. Yes, originally from Nigeria. I came over to the UK 2001. So I've been here for almost 20 years. Within the time, some few years after marriage, we both moved to the US, when I was going over to law school in the US. And after that, worked for a while in the US, then we returned back to the UK. And we are pastors here in Bradford, West Yorkshire, UK.
Yes, and my name is Andrea Onduku, and I am originally from Northern Ireland. And I left Northern Ireland when I was about 20, and I've lived in Bradford for about 21 years now. And I don't speak as if I'm from Northern Ireland. We'll get into that, I'm sure, later on.
Yes, I didn't know where you're from, but I wouldn't have thought Irish, because your accent seems to have disappeared. So Pastor Akpo is doing his thing now. He's lived in the UK, gone to America. He's now preaching the gospel. So he's about the master's or the king's business, as we say. So quite a rich journey both of you have. Ireland, Nigeria, the UK, America, and then back to the UK. So I will ask first, why Bradford?
Why Bradford?
To me, Londoner, Bradford is like Bradford.
Yeah. I mean, my journey to Bradford is an interesting one, but the short of it was that after my master's in international relations back in Nigeria at the University of Benin, I wanted a place for a PhD, and an uncle wanted to start the PhD with me in the same school. So we went around a couple of schools, and finally it took me to the west of Nigeria, the University of Ife, where they call Obafe Awolowo University now. It took me because that was where he had his original undergraduate studies, and he felt that I would love the school, I would love Ife. So we both drove down from Delta State, that's the south of Nigeria, to the southwest in Ife, and we went around the Faculty of International Studies or Relations. And after going around, we went there, just to pick up the PhD admission application form, but after taking a tour, we went to the library and we went to the bookshop of that university, and we were buying some books, and I picked a book, International Diplomacy, International Environmental Diplomacy. And that was my research area because I was researching on environmental politics. So I bought the book, and the author, at the back of the book, the author stated his qualifications. One is a Catholic Reverend Father that wrote the book, and he said PhD, Peace Studies, Bradford, University of Bradford, England. And that was when I had the knowledge of peace studies as an aspect of international relations. So, and I got, the book got my attention, and I wrote a letter to University of Bradford, just a letter. Then this email stuff was not all that involved then. And I just wrote that, please send me your prospectus. I wrote to the university, and I stated that I'm interested in the peace studies program, and they posted the prospectus to me, and that was my journey from the Nigeria. I first went to the European Peace University in Austria, I studied there. Then from there, I came over to Bradford for the peace studies PhD.
Yeah, for me, I came to study as well. I wanted to study counseling and psychology. And I noticed that you also are a person-centered counselor. And that was, similar what we learned as well. And I wanted to do that and apply to different universities, and Bradford stood out. And then some people normally say to us, well, you later went to America, and we were in Miami, Florida, the Sunshine State in America. Why back to Bradford? And that was God. It wouldn't be a choice, would it?
Yeah, that was
but when you come from the Sunshine State in America to Bradford with the beautiful weather we have here, but God knows all things.
So somehow both of you journeyed, and your journey sort of started led you to Bradford. You went away, but God still brought you back to the place. So there's purpose in every, I think, all aspects of your journey. We can. I don't know if you were Christians there, but I guess even looking back now, you would say God was at will and at work with both your lives.
Yes.
So how did you meet?
Yeah, we met. We had a mutual friend. And my mutual friend was a student in the university, and she, on a Wednesday, she called me up that she wanted to come over to eat an African food. So she was going to church that Wednesday evening. Midweek service in our church. as at this time, I've started the church. I've started the Redeemed Christian Church of God in my city. So I was a minister in my church. That was around my third year in my program, PhD program.
Mhm.
And then, so I said, okay, after your midweek service, you come over, on your way home, stop by to have your African meal. And stop by. Yes, I was in the university hall. My doorbell rang. I came down and I saw my friend and our flatmate, at around that kind of 9 p.m., after midweek service. And I was just, what are you, why, you called me and you said you needed African food. Now you're bringing somebody else. And I had just a little meal for her, something like that. And yeah, that was the first time, the stuff, I met my wife, Andrea closely that day.
And he made pepper soup. Now, if you're African at all, if you're Nigerian, you know about pepper soup. And that's what he made for me, and I loved it. And yeah, the seed was sown.
So what was that? I gave my Nigerian friend what she wanted, then there was nothing left for her. So I quickly did the pepper soup, for her,
Okay.
and that was.
So the friend that was coming over was Nigerian, but she brought Adrian, who was her flatmate.
Yes, she was, my wife's housemate.
Aha, okay.
And I think, just as as an addition to that, you mentioned earlier about being led. And I think it's why it's so important to be led, because, when I finished my studies, I was actually going to leave Bradford. My intention was to go back home. But God was speaking to me to stay in Bradford. And I didn't know why. At the time, I've just graduated. There was no job. My tenancy was expiring. I was meant to go back. Well, God said, stay. And I went to church that Sunday, and I was looking for a reason, God, speak to me. I was looking for like a flashing light of God, give me something. I don't know why you're telling me to stay. And I was praying all through the service, and God, I felt God wasn't saying anything to me. And I said, well, maybe I've heard wrong. And then this young lady came to me after the service and said, God told me during the service that seems you're looking for somewhere to stay, and you're looking for a housemate. Should we share? And that's the friend that he's talking about. So, everything works together for good.
So I'll ask Dr. Pastor Akpo first. When you saw her, what did you think? I know you were saying, oh my God, she's brought a friend around. I don't have enough food. Yeah, and it's 9 o'clock at night. So where did any of it click for you?
As my person as at then, I was used to people, used to appreciating cultures, diverse cultures. My target was, I was trained to be a diplomat. I was trained to be a diplomat. So my diplomatic life, traveling around the world. Then, I've met different cultures. So I take people as people. So when I saw my friend with my wife now, Andrea, that day, I saw, at first there was a shock, but I'm used to entertaining friends with a show of my culture. I had Japanese friends, I had Pakistanese friends, I had friends from from Germany. So when they come visiting me, I give them what is me. And when I visit them, I enjoy their cultures. And then when I visit my Japanese friend, you sit down, your legs are inside a hole, and that kind of meal and all that. I enjoy. We exchange cultures. So peace studies environment is a melting point of cultures, and it was really an international faculty. So having been part of that environment, I was able to relate with her. But the shock was that when she left that night, when they both left, I went upstairs and I just said that this is the girl, this is the lady that I want to marry. I went and I knelt down and I prayed, say, Lord, I don't know how it will be. She came through a mutual friend, but this is the lady. I don't know how
you sort of knew Almost
I knew
instant.
that day. She went that night. That night she got home, she called her mother across nations, and she called her mother on phone that I went with my housemate to our friend's house or for a meal, and the guy is good, but I don't know how it will be. That was a phone call to our mother that night while I was.
You were like, Lord, I think, I know this is my wife. I'm not sure how it's going to be. For you, Adrian, what was?
Yeah, I mean, it was the same thing, really. It's quite amazing. I used to hear people say that when you know, you will know. And I used to think, is this a cliche? Is this a myth? And I'd been praying and all of that, but the way it happened was so unique because immediately I saw him, I just thought, wow. I mean, he's handsome for a start, but but beyond that, I literally just knew when I went home. I just knew that this is him, but I had no idea how to go about it. How it was all going to unfold. But yeah, I just knew somehow this is it.
Okay, I think that's quite significant for people who are single. Yeah, not everybody gets it the way that you guys got it that first day where you were like, this sort of fits, because what you're saying is like, there is something in my Noah that says this is the person, but the unknown, as we talk about in counseling, is there. Like, how is God going to connect the dots? And I guess, Adrian, we hear all the time that the men do the finding and the seeking and the announcements. They're the ones who say to us, I think you're my wife, or will you marry me, or whichever way they want to phrase it. So maybe I should ask this question. So how, just for a single lady out there, because sometimes we get these conversations that are sometimes conflicting, because if we read something like in the book of Ruth, Ruth's mother-in-law was really engineered it, and she presented herself. But a lot of times we also hear on the other side that no, the man does the finding and he does, you just stay where you are. So it's always a conflict. So how did you manage yours? How did you manage that knowing? Because sometimes women know and the man may not know, or he may know but not have not feel he's ready, or just not in the place to articulate it. So how did you manage yours?
I mean, that's very true, and I believe that as well, to an extent. But I believe you can make yourself findable. I was just recently counseling a young lady, and this is what I was telling her, because she was kind of bemoaning the absence of a spouse, but she's just sitting in her house, upset and complaining about it. And I said, the more you serve others, you look for opportunities to serve, you look for places that you can be. And because from that day that we saw each other, firstly, if you think about it, we were coming from Bible study, so I had been to church, and then subsequent meetings that happened, was again centered around church. I was volunteering in the hospitality department in my church, and he came to I'm sure he could tell you better than me, but he came to church one evening, and was out. You can tell it better.
After that day, after the first day, then
tell us how you plotted your part.
the second time we met again was my friend, our housemate, invited me over, to our house for a meal, So I went over. I had a meal there, just friends. And for most of the time, while I was eating, she went upstairs to answer a phone call to our fiance across nations, So while I was in in the common living two-bedroom. She was now, with me.
Okay,
while I was
so
having my
the flatmates went upstairs.
yes.
Or okay, so you were left.
Yeah.
You were left
Yes.
alone.
So we just normal talking. Those days, you bring in your photo album. Albums were not on Facebook, whatever. You entertain visitors with your photo album, sort talk, that kind. So that was the second time, and there was no way I could ask for a number because I knew that it wouldn't be right. I would put myself in problem because we had a mutual friend. So after that second meeting, the next time we met in church was on a Saturday. Then we're in two different churches. So I normally meet my church, then add a Saturday fellowship. Okay, Saturday afternoon fellowship, like an house fellowship. Then our church was meeting a Saturday evening fellowship. So on that Saturday, I had went to Leeds for a friend's wedding. So I'd gone for a wedding in the next Leeds. On my way back, since I've missed fellowship, by in their church, which I had so many friends there. I had so many friends. My friend was in that church too. So, and I just said, let me catch up with my friends in that church. Then I went fellowship there. After the Saturday evening fellowship, we were on the foyer to have
like the queue for the tea and coffee.
We're in the queue for for tea and coffee. So just in that queue, we had so many international students from South Africa, from Botswana, Ghana, from Zimbabwe, so many. So, and most of them have not seen me for quite a while. So we started exchanging numbers, So where are you, Akpo? You've not been around, So I think when I took the last person's number, she was next to that person and on the queue. And for me, it will be rude not to ask her a number if I stopped at the last African student on the queue. So with my diplomatic life, I said, it would be nice if I stop at the last African. It would be very considered rude. So, so why not just ask her? She was next person. So, okay, Andrea, what about your number? That was the first time.
And you see, that's what I mean, because some ladies would say, "Oh, is it right that I give him my number? Maybe I shouldn't, give him my number." But I just also seeing how everything was, it was just friends together.
And we're all students. We're mostly all students.
Okay. So we, exchanged numbers, and then after some time, there was exchange of messages of how are you? God bless you. Very, I'm blessed and highly favored. Very Christian text messages, and and from there, talking, and then we agreed to meet for lunch, and and then that was how courtship started. So I truly believe, and I always tell people that it's about being prayerful, having your eyes open, and then making sure that you're findable, you're out there.
Because I think one thing that struck me in the story is that you were going with your friend to somebody's house that you didn't know, and it was what we would consider late. Yeah. So some people may have said, no, I'm not going, it's late, I don't know him, it will look odd, he didn't prepare food for me. But what you're saying is sometimes just go. It's
with the flow.
Yes, go with the flow, exactly. But before this, did any of you consider dating somebody who was, we always say race, but I think there's only one race, the human race. There isn't really black or white. So did any of you think of dating somebody who wasn't your skin color? Let's do that instead of white race or black race. Did you ever think about it?
For me, I would say I'd not thought about it because, as you said, I never really thought about, I don't know. I mean, it always comes across strange when I say I don't consider color, because most people do. But genuinely, I've never really thought about it. And as well as that, I hadn't dated. I was, I always had the feeling that I was looking for a husband, not a boyfriend. So I had never dated, and so I was, waiting for a husband. And so I can't say I sat down and thought about it. And obviously when I knew that he was the one, it was in my mind that, I hope it's going to be fine on his side. What about you?
You didn't think about it yourself, your parents, your family?
Well, my family, I mean, my parents, thank God they're Christians, and they'd always told me that as long as you marry a Christian, we don't mind. As long as the person is born again, we're happy.
Okay. And Pastor Akpo?
Yeah. Okay. Lydia, I want to rephrase the question.
Okay.
Yeah. That did I ever consider marrying outside my race instead of dating? So I want to change the word dating to marrying.
Dating.
Yes.
Okay.
So
yeah, because they're big
different
things,
Yeah, that's
really
big
different.
things.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
people may date, but they wouldn't marry that person because of
Yes.
because of skin color.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So did I ever consider marrying outside my race? I would say that I had no issue with marrying outside my race as at that point of time, no point in time in my life, because as at this time I had a goal, my career was to be a diplomat. So my career was to be an international diplomat, and by this time I was doing a PhD. I've already had about 3 postgraduate degrees. That was my 4th postgraduate degree with the PhD. So, and I was just on top of my career, finishing my PhD. Then I start an international, life. That was my goal. So, with that in mind, as long as the person is a child of God, I had no fear. The factor that I needed to affirm was the person should be a God-fearing believer person. Yes.
Okay. So what I'm hearing both of you say is it didn't matter skin color, it didn't matter where they were from. The most important thing was that they were Christians and you had the same faith, because for you that was the most important, and Adrian's family had agreed, or she felt agreed. What about yours? Did your family feel, oh, here comes a white lady in our midst?
I tried, my mom, my dad alive, and I put it before them. Then my sisters, through phone call and traveling down, that it seems I will make a choice outside my ethnic group, outside my country of origin, outside the black race, And at first is, don't you see anyone from our ethnic group in where you are? That kind of, at first that was a shock. But by the time I made the presentation, my family in London, that's as per culture, they invite you, come explain, because when you marry, you're not marrying just you yourself, you're marrying someone to your family, and to your culture if need be, and so I went over to London, answered all the questions. For me, as long as the person was a child of God, and my pastor, I traveled to my pastor asked me 3 things. I traveled down before making the final decision. My pastor asked me, is the person born again? Number 1. Number 2, does the person have an understanding of the Holy Spirit? And number 3, does the person have faith? So once I was able to answer these 3 questions about who the person is, then it gave his blessings.
Okay. You see, those 3 things that you said, they're one would imagine that every Christian has those things, but you can be a Christian and not be too big on faith. You might be a Christian and not be too big on the Holy Spirit. But what your pastor was asking is, this might be a bit of a journey. You might need a lot of faith to work it out.
Yes.
You know, and the person you are going on this journey with, are they equally as equipped as you for whatever this journey holds? I think marriage in itself it's a journey, and it can have its challenges
Challenging.
as well. Yes, as well as its blessings. But I think when you're marrying outside your culture, your race, whatever, I think that adds a different element. And there was something key you said, which was that if you marry somebody who is Nigerian, you are marrying the family. It's not just me and my husband or me and my wife. So this person has to know that, you know what, the whole village is coming to your house. And will our influence, will our presence, will we matter? Will that person be respectful of this? And sometimes in the Western culture, there is this nuclear family, I like to call it, which is just mom, dad, and the children. And the extended family are sort of sitting on the periphery. But in Africa, the extended family are inside with you. But I if I'm correct, I think Irish families are a bit like that.
Yes, they are.
Family is in the family. It's not just the husband and the wife. So did that help you to understand where his family was coming from, where Pastor's family is coming from?
I think so. I mean, we've been talking about that a lot. That the Northern Irish culture and the Nigerian culture, in some ways, and even our Christian faith is similar. Which has really helped us a lot. Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay. Because from what you guys have shared with us is that we met, it clicked, God worked it out, family was on our side, pastor was on our side. What challenges did you guys experience? Because you've been married for about 16 years. I noticed the other day on social media you celebrated an anniversary. What challenges were along the way with all of this?
I think, right at the beginning, in courtship on the way to marriage, we've mentioned our families, they were on side, but it's not everyone that was on side. And, surprisingly, opposition came from friends, actually. And on my side, a lot of my friends didn't really understand. And it wasn't a color thing. It was more of a cultural thing. So they were feeling like this is someone that's from a different culture that doesn't relate with us the same. So when we introduced each other, it was quite humorous because we used to always wear suits all the time, shirt and tie and full suit. And so I was going out for pizza with my friends to like one of the restaurants.
What was the birthday?
Yeah. And so I had a big group of friends, and I said to him that, I'm not sure about the suits. Is it possible that we could just dress down with maybe t-shirts and jeans? And so he did, but even at that, conversation at the table was a bit strained, and people didn't really know how to relate and all that. So it was a bit of a challenge and strained friendships, and then by this stage, I had, we mentioned the housemate I stayed with that introduced us. And by now I was living with another friend who was Nigerian. And when we started communicating together and texting, and I mentioned to her that, this was also a mutual friend.
Yes.
And I mentioned to her that, it's like Akpo's texting me, and it's like maybe there's something going on. And she said, no, he's like that with everyone. But of course, things developed. And when I told her that this is, where we are together and we're heading towards marriage, she got really upset and angry and said that it can't be. It's not possible. And I remember feeling so shocked that, someone that I thought would be a cheerleader was really, really not happy, and went into the room and called him. And when we had gone to see my pastor had said, celebrate in every challenge. And so he reminded me that this is what your pastor said, and we prayed about it. And then she came knocking on my door sometime later and said she was sorry. She was just shocked. But that was still there. It was still how she reacted, and I still felt it. Then you had some issues with church.
Yeah, I mean, on my side, my greatest shock was the opposition from the church. I mean, I had, this is a church that I started in the city, and I was a minister, or I was maybe an elder, they call us then, So, but there was an opposition from the church. I mean, they were very, very, what is the word there? They were not understanding that kind of, Akpo, we've lost brother Akpo, is now in the way of the world now. Is gone. You've gone out of the faith, and if they see me with flower, they'll just be laughing all about, side comments. What is it with flower? Carrying flower for is new. Yes, kind of new lady, that kind of, So that chant was, I mean, from the podium, you see an attack onto you. The message is about you and your foreign wife, that they will say that you're great. That kind of, that was, and being, I would say as I was not, everyone learned, I wasn't too mature in handling it, because it really touched me. I would cry on my own as I then. Why? From the church. The church knows who I am, and they give you comments, all the kind of reasons that have made you to have made the choice, And by this time, I've secured a scholarship to the US for law. I was married. The next few months, I was living for the US. So there was whatever the comments that they were making were not who I was. By this time, I've traveled around most of the world. I've been to Geneva, I've been to Finland, I've been to Austria, I've been to the US, and that was my person. I was going around the world speaking at the UN and all that. So by this time, I thought that they should know who I am as a person, as a global citizen. That my church shouldn't be dictated by, petty human, what others they think, what others consider. So that really hurt me as I then, and it took me time to develop some stamina to be able to move.
And it's just, we've been talking about it recently. It's just lack of exposure, really, of thinking that, if I can use the term, white people, or should I say non-Africans, are not strong believers. And,
so it was coming from that angle.
Yeah, it was coming from the fact that, okay, you're a minister in the church and you're going to marry someone, who's, do we know whether she's a Christian, And then there's also, maybe it's an immigration thing. That's the other thing that happens. It's an immigration thing. So I think, in terms of marrying into different races, we've really got to think how we react, that not to make presumptions, And in fact, all of them now, that when they've met me, I mean, there's no problem now. It was just a sense of not knowing.
The level of what we call emotional intelligence, So
but do you feel now, I guess when you got married 16 years ago, it's probably not as common. It wasn't as common then as it is now.
Yes.
Because now we have a lot of couples from, you see Chinese with black, Indian with white. It just doesn't end. But do you feel that society in general, you're living in the UK, living in Bradford, and even me living in London, do you feel now when people see a couple like yourself, an interracial couple, do you feel, did you feel accepted then, or do you feel more now, or do you feel a little bit more integrated in society? Maybe that's a better word. There's more acceptance around it.
Because what we were just talking about now is the church. I don't know if it's entirely changed in the church, but I would say in society, back then we'd get a lot of looks and a lot of stares, but now, no one pays attention.
No one pays attention.
So it's much more common now in society.
So society has changed. but the church is
Change.
lacking behind. That's
Yes.
what you're saying. Yeah?
But the
So
church is gradually accepting it too now.
Yeah,
Gradually.
yeah.
Gradually accepting it now.
Gradually, but I think it's important. We're not slating. We're just saying that this is something we need to check, because if we are going to say everybody is God's child, everybody is the same, everybody is acceptable, then we need to look beyond these things that we're looking at. And if a couple that is mixed comes into our midst, what Adrian was saying, do we now saying ping is immigration, ping, they're marrying somebody who doesn't believe, ping. You know, all the norms, you know, all the things that oh, how do they manage? Does she eat their food? Am I welcome in their home now? You know, she's going to act differently, or he's going to act differently. All those things that people normally think about. They might not say, but it's somewhere going along. So what we're saying is society is changing, is becoming more acceptable. And we in the church need to look about how we're doing, how we are doing in regards to this. So I know you've got 3 beautiful children. I see them on social media. How do you blend? How do you raise? How do you instruct? How does culture influence you raising the children?
Yeah, our first son, we had him in the US, so he's an American, you know. Then we came back, then we had the other 2 here in the UK. So I think Andrea has done very well because of our accent has changed, you know.
Yes,
there's a story behind that.
Yes.
We have to hear that story now.
A lot, you know. So, but that was an answer to my prayers.
Yes.
You know, at the beginning, I prayed very well and asked God that, Lord, please, I really love that, you know, we can communicate, you know, easily, you know, and somehow God answered my prayers, you know. So, but the influence for our children, I think they've come to understand both cultures. First, the church, you know, we pastor is more, you know, we have more Africans, you know, and so that is there. They've seen how people, our life, you know, is there. And then from the schools that they attend, you know, are predominantly more, you know, white dominated schools, you know. So I think we married both cultures, you know, and at home they enjoy both kinds of food, and we dance, we do, you know, and you know, they enjoy both cultures, I would say, the music style and all that has influenced.
I mean, what I would say, you know, if I had to say what was the biggest challenge for us in marrying from different cultures was communication. It was different styles of communication and different expectations about what was expected in our marriage. So communication has been a big thing for us. And right at the beginning, we were privileged to do like a 6-week emotional literacy and communication course
in the US.
So that taught us a lot about communication, which we've now been able to use for the children. So, you know, we are very what's the word, intentional about teaching them the history of both cultures. You know, both cultures. So, you know, my husband has taken, you know, we've gone as a family to some events in London that are about, you know, particularly his own tribe, where he's from. You know, on my side, you know, in Northern Ireland, we have cultural band parades, which we've taken them to. We listen to, you know, music from both sides, as you said. Food, you know, interestingly, recently, my daughter, she's now 12. She created a menu in the house where she's kind of given us, she has 2 days, we do the rest and we share, and she's giving us a menu. So this day we're eating mom's fish and chips. This day we're eating jollof rice and chicken, you know, so that there's balance in the house. She's very, you know, she's done that. So it's been intentional. I mean, that we were talking about that before we came on today about being intentional.
Yeah, there's one aspect of life, the law of intentionality. And we try the law of intentionality, you know, you must be intentional in doing what, you know, you you desire, So we try to put that in practice.
Mm.
Yeah. So I guess what you're saying is that everybody is important. Yeah. Dad's culture is important. Mom's culture is important, and we try to bring it together. Sometimes I've witnessed where one person is dominant. The dominant. There's a dominant culture, and the children may be sort of pushed towards that way. But I guess what you're saying is that we try to give them, we're telling them who they are. This is who dad is, this is mom. And like every children, like you would give them 50% of your genes, and dad will give them 50%. Then we're blending and saying, actually, this is who you are. But Adrian has to tell us this accent, why her accent is the way it is.
I believe God gave me an ability to pick up accents really quickly. That's the biological, physical aspect of the answer to the question is I do just naturally pick up accents quickly. And so when I spend some time back in Northern Ireland, my accent will switch back if I'm there for a long time. And but spiritually, definitely, I know it's not physically possible, really, for me to just say, I just pick up accent. And I do believe that God, made that to happen, not just for our marriage, but because of the ministry that we have. As a ministry, we do minister to many of those from Nigeria and from many African countries. And it's just, that's why I believe that God has ordered our steps and everything that we will do. Even from a very young age, I always tell the story that I was just about 7 years old. And in my church, I was part of Assemblies of God. And on a Sunday evening, we used to have like special events every Sunday evening, more of an evangelistic thing. And there was a group of African missionaries, I would say, that came to the church. And they were singing and dancing, and they had colorful tambourines, and they were making a lot of noise compared to our usual quietness. And I remember saying to my mom that one day I'm going to be in a church filled with people like that. And it was so strange to her that she mentioned it years later that, that's what you said. So I think, even in terms of food and dress, and I've just been able to find it very easy and very enjoyable to be able to blend in and to merge cultures. And then I sometimes tease him that he's more English than the English in some aspects. So somehow we kind of have merged in together very beautifully, and it's God that can do that. So I think if we're being intentional and saying I want to marry someone out of my race, it might be a challenge if God has not led you to that. I think the most important thing is to do what you've been led into, because God has put everything in us that has enabled us to be who we are going to be.
Yeah, okay. And I think I liked what you said your pastor told you, which was to embrace every challenge, which I think can fit in any scenario in life. You have something in front of you and you think, you know what, I'm going to embrace it, I'm going to pray, and I'm going to celebrate it. This is a step, it's just taking me on my journey. So I know you, apart from the church that you pastor, I know you've got ministry talking about building relationships. I know you've talked about communication, you've talked about being intentional, which I think we can see from your marriage. You intended that this is going to succeed. We need to communicate. This is the way we need. There's like an agreement. I don't know if you sat down to work it out, but when I hear you, I can see and feel that you are working in agreement. This is how we're going to do it. And everybody, it sounds like, has room to speak, and they are heard. And whatever we decide then gets done. So do you want to talk a bit about your ministry or the building of relationships and that part?
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, building better relationships is what we've called the ministry that is really about all relationships. And then we also have a ministry on common marriage. specifically for marriage. And then there's a nexus as well, which is for those that are married 10 years and younger. So it's something that we are really, really passionate about, because we can see so many pitfalls, and we can see where we would have gone wrong. I mean, we wouldn't still be married today if we'd not been intentional, if we'd not, like you said, come sit down and make agreements together. Because we could easily say, okay, we're going to follow, we're going to follow his culture, we're going to follow my culture. And if you even take, race out of it, you can have two Nigerians together, you can have two English people together, two Irish people together. They're going to come from different backgrounds. And communication is just as key. Race is just another thing, so we talk a lot about how to communicate, how to resolve conflict, how to, different communication styles, different conflict resolution styles. And, so building better relationships is even friendships in the workplace. We work with different cultures in the workplace, how to do that. And then, like I said, uncommon marriage. And people often say, what is uncommon marriage? Why would you call it uncommon marriage? It's because, these days it's almost expected that marriages will fail. When we hear another couple divorce, we're almost not surprised anymore as society that, oh, well, I'm surprised they lasted this long. So, and if even if a couple are together, it's almost like, oh, they're probably just together because of the kids, or, they're just tolerating each other. And we want to encourage couples to have marriages that they enjoy. And that's why that's uncommon. It's actually more common to meet someone who's divorced or who's unhappy in their marriage than someone who's happy. And, in our early years, we did face a lot of challenges, and at times probably wondered, did we make the right choice? But as we sat down and we decided how we are going to do things together, it's made our lives better. And really, marriage is sweet. And that's what I tell everyone. Marriage is good. Marriage is sweet.
Pastor Akpo.
Yes. I'll pick from the scriptures in Proverbs 18:22 that says, "He who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord." Now, the Passion Translation, says, "When a man finds a wife, he has found a treasure. He has found a treasure, for she is the gift of God to bring in joy and pleasure." So our life is, we laugh now, and we just look at ourselves, and we just keep thanking God, about our journey. First, what happened was that our moving to the US helped us a lot. That helped us a lot, because we were both out of our comfort zones in life. I was international. She was away from our family. I'm away from my family, and we were in a neutral zone, neutral country. And that's our time in the US. First, just a few months after our wedding in the UK, that helped us a lot. We tried to understand how life is. And then in the US, we had a 6 weeks course about relationships, and it was paid for by our boss in our place of work, and that really helped us. And it was from that course that we developed our marriage ministry. So, and we are intentional in trying to put that across, pass it over to others. We have a post-marital program for couples, those that were not opportune to go through marriage counseling, and we have pre-marital program for those that are going into marriage.
And it's because, this course that we did, we never experienced anything like it, because, when you go
did you have counseling before you got married?
No, we did, but, the counseling was very much where the pastor just talks at you about what marriage is and all the things that you should do and shouldn't do. And what was so different about this other course was it was very, very interactive. There were exercises that you did together. List all the things that you like love languages. So you write down the things that you love,
There was a course manual, booklets of all that.
So it was like going to school, and that's always your favorite phrase, that marriage is a school.
Marriage is school.
And so it was like going to school.
Doing the exercises.
Yeah. So that's why we felt, this is what is needed. It helped us tremendously.
And that's what we try to teach or counsel couples that come to us.
Okay. Because I guess what you're saying is that if we are able to get together before starting the journey, and it's probably a school that you never graduate from until somebody goes home to be.
No.
So it is constant learning about the other person and how to communicate. And because life is in stages, so you were probably young, and then you had a baby, and then had two, and then had three, and then you moved, and life changes. And I think we change, in different seasons in our lives. So what you're saying is that we keep learning and relearning and coming back to the table and learning and listening to the other person and hearing what it is that they need.
The foundation is key. The Bible says if the foundation is faulty, what can the righteous do? So the foundation, what you put in at the beginning, and I used to tell and what our younger ones and one of those that we counsel is that in our marriage ministry, in our marriage journey, I think we read so much. I normally say that I read about marriage more than I studied for my PhD. So we must be open to studying, to reading, to attending conferences, seminars, workshops, that will build up, that will prepare us before we start the journey.
Yeah, and I think one thing Adrian mentioned was this uncommon marriage. But I feel every marriage is uncommon because, the way they communicate and agree, and the people are different. So each marriage actually is uncommon because it's one that somebody else can't replicate. Yeah. Okay. So we're just coming to time. So who wants to go first? Who wants to leave us with something?
A few things that we help couples, is about the where you are, if for those that are intending to get married, first is to be in a place of service. In a place of service is very key. Serving God, be accountable. Be accountable to someone else. Most times people want to just they feel that nobody has a say over them. When I met Andrea, I didn't go ahead. I went to see a pastor. After I've seen the pastor, she came over to see my pastors. In short, that day that she came over to see my pastor, we had about a committee of elders. She came over.
You were really important to their heart, pastor.
She came over to join our church, for that particular service. Then the senior pastor from Manchester, then the elders in my church, about 4, 1, 2, 3, another 3 elders joined. Then we went to a restaurant, and she was the person that is to be interrogated. So they have to interrogate her, if I'm allowed to use that word, before giving
your point is about accountability.
Accountability.
You get to a point these days, someone just comes and says, Pastor, we're getting married next week.
That's it. And you have nothing to say. You just come and we're getting married. The fixed date before him telling you.
So you said accountability.
Accountability is very key.
And I think my kind of parting comments would be what we've been echoing all along is intentionality and communication is essential, for you to have a successful married life. Very, very important. So if you stop talking to each other, then, marriage ends. It's, the day that you stop talking is the day that the marriage ended. The the disintegration may come some years later, but it's when you stop communicating, or if you've never started communicating even, you know. So communication and intentionality, sitting down together and, you know, deciding on certain things together, very important. And teamwork.
Teamwork is key.
Teamwork. Thank you. Thank you again for coming. Thank you
so much for having us.
Thank you so much, Lydia, for having us.
And for giving us tools to journey this journey of marriage. And I hear you say foundation is important, agreement is important, communication is important, and intentionality. This is going to work. We are going to be challenged, but this is going to
and
work.
Teamwork. Teamwork means
teamwork.
It means together we can achieve more.
Teamwork and agreement. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so
Lydia.
much, Lydia.
Welcome. Well, we learned a lot, regardless of who you choose to marry, your race, your culture, you're somebody from your same ethnic background. It doesn't matter. Foundation, intentionality, agreement, teamwork, communication is key. Thank you for watching and listening. My name is Lydia Khalil, and I will see you next week.
LCBN television broadcasts 24/7 on UK Freeview Channel 271, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, Apple TV, Google TV, See Love World, LCBNTV.com, LifeComTV.com.